Ominous eyes loom above the city, introducing a world where monsters have permanently shattered humanity's ordinary way of life. When vicious spirits invaded, civilization was dragged into the mythical era, and survival became a relentless supernatural struggle. Now every person awakens a profession, masters its abilities, climbs through the ranks, and grows stronger as though reality itself were an enormous RPG. These awakened professionals fight ghostly monsters across the blue planet, reclaiming enough land for ordinary people and civilization to endure. In other words, the mythical era is ruled by professionals, the only humans capable of standing against the nightmare consuming their world. The story begins in the Longxia Federation, where Hai Cheng High School is holding an awakening ceremony that will decide its students' futures. Instructor Lu Hu quiets the anxious crowd, reminding everyone that today each student will finally unlock the profession destined to shape their life. The combat instructor makes the stakes perfectly clear. The class they receive here will determine nearly every opportunity awaiting them after graduation. Even so, he genuinely wishes that every student will awaken the profession they desire, briefly filling the tense ceremony with hope. Among the candidates is Fang Zhou, a transmigrator who has anticipated this day for years and intends to make the most of his second life. The moment Lu Hu calls his name, the entire field responds at once, turning Fang's awakening into the ceremony's main attraction. Unshaken by the attention, he steps away from his classmates and calmly approaches the radiant platform where his fate will be revealed. His classmates immediately begin guessing that Fang's refined appearance must mean he will become a priest, and several admirers treat the prediction as certain. Others argue that good looks are worthless without a powerful class, only for Fang's supporters to accuse them of speaking out of jealousy. The excitement is understandable. As the orphan of fallen heroes, Fang possesses outstanding fitness and excellent grades, giving him every advantage before awakening. Lu Hu also observes him with special interest, fully aware of why this particular student has drawn the attention of the whole school. Fang places his hand on the ritual formation, and golden energy rises around him as the awakening process begins. A piercing flash engulfs his vision, confirming that the formation has accepted him and that something unusual is about to emerge. The platform reacts so violently that the spectators wonder whether Fang has awakened yet another impossibly powerful profession. Yet instead of a conventional heroic revelation, spectral green hands curl around his arm, hinting at a class steeped in undead power. An eruption of green death energy tears through the ceremony, destroying the calm and proving that Fang's awakening is anything but ordinary. As the phenomenon seems to connect heaven and earth, a stunned Lu Hu wonders what astonishing profession the gifted student has received. A vast undead army materializes behind Fang in ghostly green light, including armored skeletons, mages, knights, and terrifying commanders. Above the entire legion towers a crowned skeletal sovereign with outstretched hands, making the novice appear to be Death's personally chosen heir. Fang raises an arm as spectral force bursts from the platform, compelling everyone nearby to shield themselves from the overwhelming wave. At last, the interface confirms his successful awakening as a necromancer, a rare profession perfectly suited to that sinister spectacle. Fang studies the fading apparitions and considers his new class while the undead aura continues to coil around him like living mist. The shocked silence soon collapses into laughter, as several classmates decide that such an intimidating display promised far more than it delivered. They ridicule the necromancer as one of the weakest combat professions, insisting that rarity means little when the class offers so little practical strength. Their mockery is rooted in a real limitation. A necromancer needs an exceptionally strong link to the undead realm before the profession can display its true power. Because the forces of life and death reject one another, living humans have almost no safe means of exploring that realm or mastering its inhabitants. Fang, however, can see something hidden from everyone else. A status panel showing his necromancer class, lower apprentice rank, and miserable starting attributes. Then another message appears, congratulating its host on finally activating the Undead Realm Experience system after 18 years of silence. Fang gladly accepts his absurdly late golden finger, knowing that a private cheat can transform even an allegedly useless profession into something terrifying. The system establishes a direct connection to the undead realm and gives him a skeleton clone capable of hunting, devouring, leveling up, and entering the real world. First-hand access to that dangerous dimension eliminates the necromancer's greatest weakness and provides Fang with a progression engine designed specifically for his class. He wastes no time before issuing a summon command, eager to see the skeletal avatar that will carry his growth beyond the realm of the living. His awareness enters an armored, blue-eyed skeleton, revealing that Fang can temporarily possess the clone and personally explore the undead realm through it. Better still, consuming undead creatures raises the clone's attributes, while defeated enemies can become troops for Fang to summon into reality. Recognizing the system's enormous potential, he realizes that enough victories could create an endless army and turn the entire undead realm into his private hunting ground. Before exploring, Fang orders the system to bring the clone into reality. Choosing to test its practical value immediately, the system obeys and green flames ripple across its interface as the connection between the two worlds opens. A vast emerald magic circle takes shape above the field, making it clear that no fragile beginner skeleton is about to appear. The fully armored clone descends standing upright, wreathed in black fire as blue cores blaze within its eyes, shoulders, and chest. With the skeleton beside him, Fang understands that the avatar can enter reality directly and may already be the strongest weapon he possesses. Lu Hu summons Bai Xiaochan for the next awakening. Though inwardly he regrets seeing such a promising student burdened with a difficult profession, several girls encourage Fang by saying he can still reach legendary rank, all while excitedly admiring the armored skeleton trailing him like a personal guard. A jealous student with the assassin class resents that Fang still attracts attention despite his worthless profession and insists that a lone skeleton cannot rival him. Knowing that beginner necromancers can summon only a handful of skeletons each year, the bully decides that destroying this one will cripple Fang's progress for months. Concealed behind him, the assassin fires a silent sleeve arrow at the clone, expecting a cheap surprise attack to erase Fang's only advantage. The projectile hits the skeleton's skull but scatters harmless sparks across its enchanted bone, showing just how badly the attacker misjudged his target. Blue light ignites in the clone's eyes as it fixes the assassin with murderous intent, responding to the ambush before Fang can even issue an order. It disappears in a blur and crosses the field so quickly that none of the stunned spectators can follow its movement. The bully panics when the skeleton vanishes, unable to comprehend the speed of the enemy he has just provoked. A heartbeat later, the clone materializes in front of him mid-swing, black fire streaming from its skull. A savage blow crashes into the attacker's face, wiping away his smug expression and demonstrating the true meaning of Fang's strongest summon. The clone continues without hesitation and hammers him into the ground with overwhelming strength while everyone around them freezes in shock. Bloodied and afraid, the assassin cannot grasp how a necromancer's first skeleton has so completely surpassed his supposedly superior profession. He crawls over the grass, battered and trembling, his confidence destroyed by the spectacular failure of his sabotage. Then an enraged voice demands to know what Fang is doing, leaving the injured aggressor on the ground as chaos overtakes the ceremony. Lurengia cannot believe the skeleton detected an attack from behind, but his wounded pride quickly pushes him to search for an easier weakness. He tells himself that Fang's actual body must be frail, reasoning that a summoner could only create such a monster by investing everything in it. Still unwilling to admit defeat, the assassin leaps up and charges Fang from behind, proving that humiliation has taught him nothing about judging danger. He lifts a dagger for a killing strike at the supposedly defenseless necromancer while the clone remains several steps away. Fang catches the descending blade in his bare hand and stops it inches from his face, revealing that his physical ability is yet another unpleasant surprise. Lurengia cries out as green energy winds around the trapped weapon, leaving him unable either to force it down or pull it free, dismissing the ambush as a pathetic mistake. Fang steps forward with the effortless confidence of someone facing a trivial opponent. His fist slams into Lurengia's face, blending raw strength with supernatural power in a counterattack the assassin never sees coming. The punch sends the bully flying backward through a spray of blood while Fang remains firmly beside his silent skeletal guardian. Lurengia hits the ground with enough force to stun the crowd, proving that attacking Fang himself was somehow an even worse decision. He lies speechless in the blood-stained grass, all praise for his assassin class forgotten after 2 humiliating defeats before the entire school. Bored with the affair, Fang simply walks away with his skeleton and treats the fallen bully like an irrelevant obstacle. The witnesses finally recognize Lurengia and spread the real story. After launching a sneak attack, he was dropped by Fang with a single punch. While his friends crowd around him, the wounded attacker mutters Fang Zhou's name and realizes that this public humiliation will follow him. Fury replaces his disbelief, and Lurengia vows to take revenge on the necromancer as soon as he recovers. Later, Fang slips into a quiet school building, leaving the disorderly ceremony behind in search of a place where no onlooker can disturb him. Inside an empty room, he summons the system interface while his towering skeleton stands guard behind him. The system asks whether he wishes to begin his Undead Realm experience, and this time Fang is prepared to start the real journey. Exploration offers essential knowledge and opportunities to devour undead creatures, but he knows that the unfamiliar dimension will not surrender its rewards freely. Since the predators there may consume him before he can consume them, Fang accepts that danger must accompany opportunity and commands the experience to begin. The system accepts his command and prepares the transfer as drifting green sparks and spectral code fill the deserted classroom. After spending 18 years waiting for this ability, Fang has no intention of wasting his first real chance to accelerate his growth. Once preparations are complete, the system warns him that the danger is unknown and asks him to cancel or confirm, making the choice entirely his. Fang confirms without a moment's hesitation, starting the transfer before caution has any chance to change his mind. Green darkness envelops him, erasing the classroom as the system sends his consciousness beyond the world of the living. He arrives beneath a crimson moon in a wasteland covered with graves, where dead trees and jagged cliffs offer no hint of safety. Fang awakens within the solitary skeleton kneeling among scattered bones, and the black mountains in the distance make the hostile realm feel unmistakably real. The clone's panel is unchanged. It remains a lower apprentice with 1 point in every attribute, no equipment, and a single innate ability. That ability, skeletal armament, allows a skeleton to reinforce itself and fashion equipment from bones, an ideal power in a land full of graves. Fang recognizes it as the skill the clone used at the ceremony, explaining the armor that rendered Lurengia's ambush harmless. Putting survival first, he collects the bones around him and creates a weapon before confronting whatever may be lurking beyond the ruined tombs. His caution immediately proves worthwhile when a red-eyed undead wolf bursts from hiding and attacks before he can study his surroundings. A second wolf emerges alongside it, turning his first encounter into a sudden 2-1 ambush against an inexperienced apprentice clone. Both monsters spring forward with jaws open, perfectly illustrating why every reward in this realm comes wrapped in danger. Fang narrowly evades the initial assault and acknowledges that threats are everywhere here, even before his exploration has truly begun. One wolf sinks its teeth into the skeleton's arm, but the reinforced bone withstands the bite and prevents an abrupt end to the journey. The other catches his foot during the struggle and locks him in place, revealing coordination far beyond that of normal beasts. Rather than panic, Fang swings his bone weapon at the nearer wolf, countering both attackers and disrupting their combined assault. He jokes that the ambush is a 2-for-1 offer and launches his counterattack, since twice the enemies also means twice the potential rewards. His crude blade crashes into one wolf's skull while the other remains entangled, finally turning the vicious encounter in his favor. A frantic kick hardly moves the surviving wolf, teaching Fang that undead flesh can withstand far more punishment than any living animal. The unfamiliar skeleton body is also difficult to control, and with more wolves gathering nearby, a prolonged close-range fight would be fatal. Fang notices a heap of abandoned bones and recognizes enough raw material to turn skeletal armament into a decisive tactical advantage. As the pack charges once more, he reaches for the pile and prepares a system-assisted solution instead of attempting another ineffective kick. Skeletal armament draws the remains together into a curved bone scythe, transforming the desperate survivor into a properly equipped reaper. The weapon cleaves through an attacking wolf, proving that crafted bone is sharp enough to pierce these unnaturally resilient monsters. Another beast rushes through the opening, giving the beginner no opportunity to celebrate or even become comfortable with his new weapon. Fang turns the scythe at point-blank range and uses the skeleton's reach to keep the snapping jaws away from its vital core. In the real world, an identical injury suddenly appears on his hand, revealing that wounds suffered by the possessed clone are transferred to its host. This hidden condition makes the experience much more perilous than he expected, because the clone's destruction may also kill his living body. Despite the discovery, Fang concentrates on the fallen wolf and realizes that its bones are still useful after death. Blue power streams from the clone's palm into the corpse as he applies skeletal armament to fresh monster remains for the first time. Declaring that even the dead will serve him, Fang harvests usable material from the wolf while the surviving members of the pack draw closer. The gathered bones merge into his equipment and form glowing blue edges, converting a battlefield casualty into an immediate upgrade. Another wolf attacks before the change is finished, but the reinforced skeleton stands its ground and meets the charge directly. A precise close-range counter cuts the monster down, showing how rapidly Fang is learning to control his unfamiliar body. Trailing blue energy, he rushes the next target and begins reducing the pack's numerical advantage one enemy at a time. By the end of the clash, broken wolves cover the crimson wasteland while the armored clone remains upright with its improved bone weapon. Fang admits that skeletal armament is far better than expected, since its versatility allows every victory to generate even greater strength. Then a brilliant blue flame floats out of a wolf's corpse, revealing a reward that clearly has nothing to do with normal anatomy. The flame settles in the skeleton's hand and responds to the clone as though it were a resource awaiting use. An unnatural craving overwhelms Fang, showing him that the skeleton does not simply recognize soulfire. It instinctively hungers for it. A primal command echoes within the clone: consume, seize power, and evolve. Turning each fallen undead creature into fuel for advancement, Fang places the blue fire into the skeleton's mouth, and crackling energy surges through its skull before spreading across the reinforced frame. The system instantly reports an attribute increase, confirming that devoured soulfire transforms a kill into permanent growth. The clone's strength rises from 1 to 1.1, while the interface credits skeletal armament and records 0.1 soul power for future use. According to the system, soul power can deduce abilities, improve potential, and enhance gear, making it the central resource for Fang's entire build. Thus, every defeated enemy provides both crafting material and energy for evolution, reducing the Necromancer's ideal strategy to something simple and brutal: explore, kill, consume, evolve. The whole system forms a perfect progression cycle, in which danger and experience are found in the same place. As long as he continues hunting, every victory can raise his attributes, strengthen his equipment, and expand his control beyond the limits of an ordinary beginner. Gazing over the seemingly endless wasteland, Fang sees no clear ceiling to this growth and eagerly commits himself to the hunt. A hostile skeleton wanders toward him through the ruins, offering an easier test subject than the coordinated wolf pack. Its panel identifies it as a mindless apprentice-level cannon fodder skeleton with a weak body and an obvious vulnerability: the soul flame within. Fang invokes skeletal armament to create a bone spear, waits for the system's confirmation, and charges the simple target. A single decisive thrust destroys it, awarding agility and 0.1 soul power and proving that even the weakest enemies provide useful gains. The next skeleton falls just as easily, increasing his constitution and soul power while another visible layer of reinforcement spreads across the clone. Its devoured soul fire makes the armored figure glow, and Fang claims the stolen energy as fuel for his own advancement. After hunting repeatedly, the clone reaches 3 strength, 2 agility, 2 constitution, 2 spirit, and 10 soul power. But Fang is still unsatisfied. Back at Haicheng High School, his physical body remains motionless motionless in the silent room while his consciousness continues the experience. A female student approaches and calls his name, interrupting Fang's repeated vow to become stronger before he even notices her presence. The sound pulls him out of his fantasy of power, and Fang turns around. Suddenly aware that his real body is no longer alone, he recognizes Bai Xiaochan, who immediately spots the blood on his hand and asks what happened. Assuming that disappointment over his profession made him hurt himself, she reprimands him for taking out his frustration that way and leaves Fang bewildered. He understands that the transferred injury caused the misunderstanding and silently resolves to find a much more secluded place for future experiences. Fang dismisses it as an accidental scratch to reassure her, though Bai Xiaochan's doubtful expression shows that she barely believes him. Their uncomfortable silence ends with him concealing the injured hand while she continues to observe him like a suspicious doctor. Bai Xiaochan reminds Fang that meditation class is about to begin, and the two leave together before they can be late. He suddenly coughs and stumbles, prompting her to insist that they visit the infirmary because his minor wound clearly is not the whole problem. The system explains that he remained in the experience too long and strained his physical body, proving that prolonged possession carries costs beyond shared injuries. As Fang processes the warning, the interface lights up again and redirects his attention from Bai Xiaochan's concern to the gains he has earned. His living body has improved with the clone, reaching 1.2 strength and 1.1 in agility, constitution, and spirit. More importantly, Summon Skeleton now appears next to a skill that can be deduced, giving his accumulated soul power an enticing purpose. Fang wonders whether he can follow the example of elite professionals and invent an original ability, opening a path beyond his class's conventional restrictions. The scene shifts to Haicheng High School's academic building, where the awakened students assemble for their first official training lesson. A new teacher brings the lecture hall to order, replacing the disorder of the ceremony with serious instruction in professional fundamentals. She introduces herself as Shen Hongyu, a lower silver fire mage assigned to teach meditation, and looks considerably more dangerous than a normal instructor. Shen hands out a basic meditation technique for each profession and tells the students to manifest their powers through focused practice. She explains that meditation builds spiritual power, providing the foundation needed to activate and maintain every professional skill they will acquire. Success requires patience, and Shen proudly reveals that even a genius like her needed half a month, establishing a standard no beginner is expected to surpass. At once, Fang's system detects the skeleton meditation method and offers to deduce it directly to entry level, effortlessly defying that standard. Fang accepts the offer and spends soul power, using a single upgrade to bypass months of elementary meditation training. Green symbols burst around him as deduction starts, forcing unfamiliar necromantic knowledge into his mind in one overwhelming flood. His awareness synchronizes with the skeleton clone, transforming genuine experience into a complete visualization technique without blind imagination or endless repetition. Seconds later, the interface confirms that he has mastered the skeleton meditation method, instantly making Shen Hongyu's half-month record seem obsolete. The apprentice entry stage method improves spirit by visualizing a skeleton, an exceptionally convenient exercise for someone mentally linked to a living skeletal avatar. Rather than struggle to picture every bone, Fang only needs to recall the clone already imprinted on his consciousness. Even better, the clone meditates automatically whenever Fang is not possessing it, allowing his cultivation to continue around the clock. The system restores enough spirit for another transfer and teaches him that entering the realm consumes this energy, meaning both bodies must continue training. With that lesson complete, Fang immediately begins another undead realm experience, treating meditation primarily as a way to refill his hunting time. Beneath the red sky, the armored clone returns and discovers a wandering skeleton that will serve as the perfect warm-up for its improved form. A quick blow destroys the mindless creature, granting constitution and soul power before it can offer meaningful resistance. Fang celebrates his return to the hunt and regards the wasteland as an open-world zone filled with materials for further upgrades. The system announces that skeletal armament has reached instinct proficiency and can now provide the basis for a human skill at the cost of 10 soul power. Fang realizes that deduction occurs within the undead realm, where the clone's mastered instincts can be translated into abilities his living body can use. He pays the 10 soul power and starts the process, allowing the system to examine every combat instinct involved in shaping bone weapons. Green code surrounds the skeleton as countless possibilities flash past, each one a potential ability derived from skeletal armament. The final result is Bone Javelin, a proficient apprentice skill that gives Fang a ranged option instead of forcing him into every melee encounter. The technique creates throwable bone spears infused with death energy and armor-piercing force, while their number, reach, and damage scale with spirit and proficiency. Bone Javelin also opens a derivative skill tree containing Bone Shield, Giant Bone Claw, and Bone Prison for later development. Spotting more frightened undead nearby, Fang recognizes that every branch will require additional soul power and prepares to harvest the entire area. To test Bone Javelin, the clone selects a conveniently clustered group of low-level skeletons as its first targets. A massive blue-white spear descends like divine judgment, crushing the assembled undead and splitting the earth beneath them. Wrapped in deathly blue energy, the spectral projectile rips across the battlefield and displays the impressive reach of Fang's newly deduced power. As the enemies collapse, he concludes that Bone Javelin is far stronger than standard apprentice techniques such as Death Missile or Ray of Enfeeblement. Unfortunately, these weak skeletons now provide only tiny attribute gains and scraps of soul power, showing that his easy beginner farming route has reached its limit. The clone's strength rises to 3.1 while agility and constitution reach 2.05, but meaningful progress will require venturing into much more dangerous territory. With bone essence still unavailable, Fang decides to consume as many lesser undead as possible before risking an encounter with whatever lies deeper within the realm. In the classroom, his physical body wears a satisfied grin that immediately attracts the suspicious gaze of the attentive meditation teacher. Before Fang can correct his expression, Lu Renjia leans over with a mocking laugh, evidently eager to revive their one-sided rivalry. Shen Hongyu notices Fang smiling while the rest of the class meditates and demands an explanation, pulling his secret hunt into public scrutiny. One classmate eagerly suggests that the Necromancer is incapable of meditation, while others argue that a rare profession should produce exceptional results rather than total failure. Because necromancers awaken so rarely, they assume the inherited skeleton meditation method may be incomplete, and that Fang's apparent difficulty is therefore natural. Shen reminds him that difficulty does not justify giving up, and warns that his lack of focus is now distracting the whole class. She holds up Lu Renjia as an example for manifesting a knife handle in one lesson, and he boasts that one-third comprehension makes him at least an ordinary genius. The assassin then smugly tells Fang to recognize the gulf between necromancers and proper professions, apparently forgetting their earlier physical confrontation. Entirely unimpressed, Fang quietly describes that cultivation speed as painfully mediocre, destroying Lu Renjia's proud performance with a few words. Furious, the assassin says that someone who cannot even begin meditation has no right to ridicule a true talent. Fang answers by releasing his perfected visualization, causing an enormous green skeletal head to erupt behind him and frighten his accuser backward. Shen immediately orders Lu Renjia to steady his thoughts as the classroom disturbance shifts from petty boasting to dangerous spiritual pressure. When she questions Fang for bringing a combat-like display into meditation class, he innocently says he only wanted student Lu to move aside. Lu Renjia was blocking the teacher's view, Fang explains, and he now intends to demonstrate his actual meditation progress. Disbelief sweeps the classroom, though skeptics predict that even a successful attempt could amount to no more than 1/10 of the entry stage. Ignoring them, Fang activates the skeleton meditation method and allows cold blue energy to gather around his body. A towering skeletal manifestation floods the classroom with waves of spiritual force and silences every mocking voice at once. Lu Renjia and the other students stare helplessly as Fang's visualization dominates the room, bearing no resemblance to an incomplete beginner's weapon handle. Shen Hongyu realizes that he reached the full entry stage in a single lesson, an absurd feat that finally breaks her professional composure. Beneath the spectral guardian, Fang calculates that his progress is roughly 100 million times faster than that of a typical genius. Even the stern, bearded instructor praises his meditation results, confirming that the display has impressed someone capable of evaluating real combat potential. Lu Hu promptly announces a test for the following day, surprising Fang with how quickly the school moves from awakening to formal assessment. The students learn that combat practice begins immediately, alarming those who still have not reached entry-stage meditation after their first lesson. Lu Renjia secretly welcomes the test, believing battle is his true specialty, and that the supposedly fragile mage can no longer conceal his inferiority. That night, black-green energy once again streaks across the undead realm as Fang begins another session of relentless hunting. The armored clone races over the fractured ground, unwilling to waste any of its expanded possession window on cautious exploration. Entry-level mastery of the skeleton meditation method has considerably lengthened Fang's time in the realm, allowing the clone to hunt longer before disconnection. Aware that each second is valuable, he promises to eliminate as many undead as possible before his spirit runs out. The clone slams through another skeletal enemy and knocks it away with sheer armored momentum, already demanding a new target instead of stopping. A second foe receives the same treatment, its weapon proving useless as the tireless bone warrior drives directly through its defense. Fang continues cutting down enemies throughout the wasteland, determined to squeeze several more victories from his improved endurance. After the slaughter, the clone stands amid piles of bones with its weapon raised, searching for prey valuable enough to justify advancing deeper. Eventually, the horizon darkens above the scattered remains, and Fang's remaining spirit approaches zero, forcing him to conclude another successful expedition. Before the link closes, the system announces that his professional level has increased and offers to reinforce the skeleton clone as part of the advancement. Fang accepts immediately, turning the accumulated progress into a direct evolution as green light floods the interface. Cascading energy envelops the armored skeleton and strengthens its frame, protection, and soul flame simultaneously. Blue fire races through every joint and plate of armor, completing a transformation that makes its previous lower apprentice state look unfinished. The clone has become a middle apprentice with 5 strength, 3 points in every other attribute, and a newly acquired ability called Brutal Strike. Brutal Strike releases a burst of explosive power against a single target, with damage determined by the clone's strength and skill proficiency. Thrilled by the unexpected ability, Fang realizes that the evolved fighter will eliminate undead much faster during the next expedition. While he admires the upgrade, his sight flickers blue and the connection begins to collapse. Reminding him that every excess still burdens his human body, he belatedly understands that examining Brutal Strike distracted him while his spirit was already depleted, ending the triumphant night with painful backlash. 1 week later, the students assemble on Haicheng High School's athletic field for the promised combat test beneath a calm morning sky. Fang arrives holding his aching head and admits that repeatedly pushing the system past safe limits has left his spirit severely strained. Bai Xiaochan observes that he has looked ill throughout the week, but he blames overtraining and privately resolves to conduct future sessions in solitude. Lu Renjia calls necromancy a useless profession for exhausting Fang through meditation and claims that a class's worth is ultimately decided by fighting power. Bai angrily asks why he keeps harassing someone who never wronged him, but the bully insists that he is merely stating the truth. Fang casually offers him another beating, only for Lu Renjia to declare that a week of training has transformed him completely. A dagger of golden energy forms in the assassin's hand as he boasts that a single newly learned skill is enough to defeat Fang. Before the rematch starts, Lu Hu's commanding shout stops them both and draws every eye toward the approaching combat instructor. He reminds the students that their school-taught skills are meant for vicious spirits, not their classmates, and Lu Renjia immediately stammers his agreement. Having witnessed Fang's meditation talent, Lu Hu personally encourages him to work equally hard in combat class and receives a calm promise in return. As the instructor leaves, Fang senses that Lu Hu is deliberately protecting him, giving him an unexpected ally before the test. Lu Hu commands the students to assemble, and they rush into formation, abandoning casual conversation for disciplined attention. On his signal, assistants roll the testing equipment onto the field while the class watches the hidden device with growing interest. The heavy machine approaches beneath a protective cover, prompting nearby students to lean forward and speculate about what is concealed inside. Lu Hu unveils an apprentice-level testing golem built to measure attack and defense, with matching base values displayed across its horned metal frame. Using an abyssal imp for comparison, he explains that resisting its sharp claws head-on requires precisely 100 points of defense. One nervous student notices the machine's accumulated damage and asks whether their attacks might finally destroy it, drawing a confident smile from Lu Hu. The instructor states that no first-year student has ever broken one of these golems and challenges the class to be the first to do so through raw ability. He offers 20 alliance contribution points to anyone who succeeds, instantly transforming the doubtful crowd into enthusiastic volunteers. Fang remembers that contribution points serve as a universal currency for purchasing valuable skills and resources, making the near-impossible prize highly desirable. Everyone volunteers at once, but Lu Hu forms an orderly line and directs the common professions to test before the rarer classes. The first candidate gathers roaring fire around his arms and prepares an impressive-looking spell while the golem stands motionless. His fireball explodes directly against the metal body, yet the sturdy target barely responds to the impact. The screen reports only 48 attack power, confusing the student because the spell felt far stronger than the disappointing result. Another candidate rushes in with crippling strike, but the dramatic melee blow scores just 41 points. A green-haired archer follows with an energetic, petrifying arrow, only for the golem to record 50 and continue the class's underwhelming streak. After every common class has finished, Lu Hu summons the special professions one by one, promising that the next round will be more revealing. Since no ordinary student exceeded 60, the class recognizes how unreachable the reward really is and begins wondering whether hidden professions will fare better. Fang's offense currently depends entirely on his skeletons, so he considers whether the golem will combine their individual attacks into a cumulative result. Lu Renjia interprets that thoughtfulness as fear and mocks Fang's allegedly miserable attack power. Seeing weakness where there is only calculation, the assassin approaches the golem and declares that his newly acquired skill will finally reveal the difference between them. Lu Renjia activates Phantom Dagger, cutting a crimson arc across the machine, producing the forceful impact his pride demanded. The screen displays 80 attack, allowing him to praise the Phantom Assassin class until the others remind him that he is not the only hidden professional. Lu Hu calls Yifan next, and the calm red-haired student steps forward immediately without any of Lu Renjia's theatrics. Whispering spectators identify him as a demon hunter and explain that the school leadership selected him early enough to establish a dedicated research team. Yifan manifests a large crescent blade and channels emerald power until the pressure of his preparation spreads across the field. He surges forward and drives the glowing weapon into the golem with a clean, disciplined strike that justifies the school's investment. His vengeance strike hits hard enough to command everyone's attention, though the machine's initial reading is unexpectedly modest. The display shows 65, only slightly above the common results and far below the score expected from a heavily supported prodigy. Before the crowd can judge him, Yifan announces that his technique has not ended, and his green eyes flash as the combination continues. A second vengeance strike lands at once and lifts the cumulative score to 69, beginning a steady succession rather than relying on one explosive blow. The repeated attacks drive the number to 88 as the golem endures an uninterrupted series of Emerald Edge strikes. Yifan completes the chain with one final slash, locking the display at 100 while maintaining his composed expression. Lu Hu confirms the full 100-point score and places the Demon Hunter in first, though the battered test golem remains standing. Fang now knows the machine adds chained attacks together, making it entirely plausible for his skeletons to destroy the target through repeated blows. After finishing, Yifan surveys the class and considers which of the remaining hidden professionals might threaten his lead. He decides with quiet confidence that nobody present can surpass him, treating the 100-point result as proof of his class's superiority. Lu Renjia protests that accumulating attacks is unfair, but Bai Xiaochan dryly asks where an assassin would find a combination skill in the first place. Lu Hu calls Bai next, and she approaches the test machine under everyone's gaze despite her visible anxiety. Reminding herself that she awakened a hidden profession, Bai refuses to disgrace it and surrounds her body with brilliant green energy. She launches herself forward in a spiraling emerald charge, moving impressively fast despite her support profession's poor offensive scaling. The golem records only 31 attack, leaving Bai frustrated by how little direct combat strength her spectacular-looking rush actually provides. Lu Renjia laughs at the result and claims that any assassin class could exceed 80, only to fall silent when Lu Hu calls Gu Jiqiu. The Storm Mage surrounds himself with blue projectiles and casts Chain Wind Energy Missile, earning a respectable score of 72. Earth Knight Zhao Yuan follows with Shield Armor Charge, smashing into the machine with Armored Force and registering 69. Heavy Hammer Warrior Chen Yang then uses Giant Hammer Smash to reach 84, the strongest single strike among the special professions so far. Although every special class attacker outperforms Bai, none reaches 100 or seriously harms the golem, apparently leaving the 20-point prize secure. Then someone remembers that the last hidden professional has not yet tested, and the whole class turns toward its only Necromancer. Lu Renjia mocks their expectations, predicting that Fang cannot score even 10, and joking that his skeletons may be unable to stand upright. Instead of responding to the insult, Fang asks whether Lu is truly certain he cannot win the 20 contribution points, inviting another foolish bet. The assassin declares that he will eat the golem in front of everyone if Fang destroys it, demonstrating that previous humiliation taught him nothing. Fang's dangerous smile widens as he confirms that Lu made the promise himself and binds him to the ridiculous wager. He asks the spectators to move farther away, and the puzzled crowd reluctantly clears a wide area around the machine. Lu Renjia assumes that Fang is afraid an embarrassing score will provoke laughter, but the Necromancer calmly rejects the accusation. Fang explains that the ability he is about to use simply requires a great deal of space as spectral chains and dark clouds gather above. Green-black chains descend from a summoning formation and pull an organized group of blue-eyed skeleton warriors into reality before the astonished class. 10 skeletons materialize at once, shocking students who believed novice necromancers could control only 2 and inspiring whispers that Fang has reached black iron. Lu Hu recalls that even Su Xinyan, history's most gifted necromancer, summoned only 5 skeletons immediately after awakening. As the 10 warriors form ranks, the instructor seriously wonders whether Fang's talent has already exceeded that legendary precedent. Fang privately congratulates himself for showing restraint, since revealing his entire undead force would draw far more attention than this limited display. At his order, all 10 skeletons charge the golem together and turn the school assessment into a miniature undead assault. The warriors move with startling speed and encircle the machine before the spectators can properly track their coordinated rush. Skeletal fists batter the metal body from every direction, trapping it within a continuous swarm as the screen begins calculating. The accumulated result rises through 30, 45, 60, and finally 65, while the synchronized barrage continues. The onlookers call 65 acceptable for ordinary warriors, but disappointing for an entire squad, allowing old prejudices against necromancers to resurface. Lu Renjia laughs that dividing the score among 10 leaves each skeleton with less than 10 attack and confidently announces Fang's defeat. Fang tells him to be patient because the demonstration has only begun. Though the assassin interprets his calmness as desperate posturing, if 10 skeletons are not enough, Fang says, he will simply double their number, and another summoning wave opens behind him. The class erupts when at least 20 warriors emerge. Wondering whether any necromancer in history possessed such strength while Bai cheers for her friend, the expanded horde crashes against the golem and buries its metal limbs beneath a storm of bones as the number rises. Repeated impacts push the display past 91, and pieces begin breaking from the target's mechanical face under the combined punishment. Electricity bursts from the golem as the result passes 100, but Fang's skeletons keep striking and transform a completed test into outright demolition. The reading races beyond its intended limit until the entire machine explodes, scattering burning fragments across the stunned athletic field. Smoke drifts over the speechless crowd, leaving only dark silhouettes and debris where the supposedly indestructible golem once stood. The students realize that Fang never stopped at 65. His continuing barrage exceeded the machine's tolerance, accomplishing something no freshman should manage. Lurengia stands frozen among the falling wreckage, understanding that the score passed its limit before the golem physically collapsed. He stares at the cracked display reading 999 and screams inwardly that such power cannot possibly belong to a beginner. Fang retrieves the golem's horned head from the rubble and casually offers it to Lurengia like a meal that has finally been served. Holding the metal head by one horn, he reminds the pale assassin that the wager requires him to eat his dinner. When Lu predictably rejects the menu, Fang offers a more merciful alternative, although the darkness surrounding him makes it sound no less frightening. With violet light burning in his eyes, he orders Lu Rengia never to appear before him again, ending their rivalry in the simplest possible way. Lurengia withdraws across the field while vowing to take revenge someday, surrendering all remaining dignity but finally leaving Fang alone. Bai hurries over and demands to know his cultivation secret, so Fang credits ordinary meditation rather than reveal a system linked to another dimension. Lu Hu says that the performance opened his eyes, and Fang responds with practiced modesty despite having just demolished expensive school equipment. The instructor promises to argue for Fang's inclusion among the Academy's specially cultivated seeds, a position offering resources and recognition far beyond those of normal freshmen. In the principal's office, a report states that 903 of 10,000 first-year students awakened successfully, producing a success rate of roughly 91%. The 85 rare professionals include Earth Knight Zhao Yuan, Support Specialist Bai Xiaochan, Storm Mage Gu Jiqiu, and Demon Hunter Yi Fan. The white-haired principal chooses to admit all 85 directly into the 100-student seed program, filling most of its places on rarity alone. When Fang's profile appears, however, the principal stops at the Necromancer designation despite the remarkable student pictured in the report. Certain that the profession has no future, he decides to omit Fang from the list without first considering any performance results. An urgent knock interrupts his decision, and the principal permits the unexpected visitor to enter. Lu Hu rushes in from combat class, carrying a stack of reports, and announces an emergency, while the surprised principal asks why he abandoned his students. Ignoring the question, the instructor searches the documents and triumphantly retrieves the particular file he came to deliver. Lu Hu presents Fang's record and strongly recommends him for seed status, making the controversial necromancer impossible to dismiss without discussion. The principal concedes that necromancy holds immense theoretical promise, but says that realizing it is nearly impossible, prompting Lu to mention Major Su Xinyan. He replies that Su succeeded only because an earlier legend trained her personally and asks what comparable support Fang possesses. The principal also knows that Lu once fought beside Fang's heroic parents, but warns him that personal loyalty cannot determine the Academy's investments. Seed status brings obligations along with resources, he emphasizes, so every selected student must offer more than sentiment or an honorable family name. Lu Hu insists that this responsibility is exactly why Fang deserves the position and hands over the results from meditation and combat classes. When the principal reads that Fang mastered meditation in one lesson and summoned more than 20 skeletons, his skepticism finally collapses. Lu predicts that the boy will rewrite the history of necromancy, but the principal reserves judgment until the simulated battlefield provides measurable proof. Alone again, he studies Fang's file with renewed curiosity and decides to see what other impossible achievements the student can produce. Outside, Bai walks beside Fang and presses him to explain how he delivered such astonishing results in their very first combat lesson. He shrugs and calls a few additional skeletons unremarkable, which only causes his amazed friend to stare at him more intensely. Bai warns him that excessive humility becomes its own form of arrogance, while Fang sincerely considers the feat small compared with everything his hidden clone has accomplished. Unable to explain that today's power represented only a fraction of what the system can provide, he simply smiles at her misunderstanding. Before they leave the field, Yi Fan calls Fang's name, causing both him and Bai to turn toward the unusually serious demon hunter. Yi declares that he has never been inferior to anyone, and identifies Fang as the only classmate worthy of being his opponent. The theatrical statement leaves both listeners trapped in uncomfortable silence, uncertain whether this is a challenge or a performance. Fang refuses to duel a Chunibyu and starts walking away while Bai openly remarks on how strange the red-haired prodigy is. Yi quickly explains that he needs an evenly matched sparring partner rather than a simple rival, finally convincing Fang to listen. The Demon Hunter research team requires someone of comparable strength to support its experiments, turning Yi's dramatic speech into a practical recruitment effort. Fang immediately asks why he should give his time to somebody else's research, making it clear that pride and rivalry are not adequate payment. Yi offers 10 contribution points, accommodations, and meals in exchange for 2 weeks of sparring, instantly speaking the necromancer's preferred language. Fang accepts and shakes his hand without hesitation, surprising even Yi with how quickly his chosen opponent agrees to paid combat. Eager to begin, Yi orders his new partner to follow and marches away before either Fang or Bai can reconsider. Bai questions why he would accept an offer from such an obvious Chunibyu, but Fang replies that 10 contribution points are too valuable to refuse. Beneath the joke, he knows that his expanding undead army genuinely needs the resources those points can purchase. Bai wonders whether Yi is secretly rich, but Fang explains that the Research Association advances all of the contribution points he spends. Since the money is only a loan, Yi will eventually have to repay it, turning his apparent generosity into heavily financed self-confidence. At this rate, Fang jokes, the demon hunter may spend 20 years after graduation clearing his debt, and Bai finally understands the arrangement. Yi guides Fang and Bai to a modern research center and invites them inside. Promising that the real purpose of their visit awaits above, he proudly reveals the demon hunter laboratory, which is filled with robotic targets, advanced monitors, specialized tools, and ample room for controlled battles. Fang quietly admires the facility and recognizes that rare professionals receive support unavailable to almost any ordinary student. A bespectacled man introduces himself as Chen Qingshan, a silver-rank Gale Ranger and head of the Demon Hunter Research Association. Fang respectfully greets Professor Chen, whose mechanical arm and restrained manner immediately distinguish him from a harmless academic. Although described as a logistics researcher, Chen carries the unmistakable presence of a frontline veteran, revealing the experience hidden beneath his laboratory coat. He explains that an older human demon hunter recently earned the legendary crown in an abyss mystic realm after killing an abyss lord. That achievement made Yi's awakening strategically valuable, so the institution created this group to develop his potential as fully as possible. Professor Chen reveals that he has examined Fang's records as well, redirecting the conversation from Yi's development to another promising subject. He offers to create a smaller research association for Fang, but the Necromancer politely refuses before accepting any financial burden. Remembering Yi's advances, Fang has no desire to spend 20 years after graduation repaying laboratory debt for supposedly free assistance. Chen accepts the decision and leads both students into a large combat room, ready to begin the practical study at once. He assures them that extensive precautions remove any risk of death, allowing both awakened fighters to use their full strength without restraint. To help them reach peak performance, Chen permits each student to select 3 items from the association's well-stocked armory. Fang evaluates Yi's strength, speed, and explosive damage as natural counters to a skeleton horde, and concludes that simple numerical superiority may not be sufficient. Before choosing equipment, he opens the green deduction panel and prepares to increase his personal combat strength with another carefully selected ability. The tree offers upgraded bone javelin, bone shield, summon skeleton, and several branching paths, giving him multiple unfair solutions. While Fang studies the options, Yi returns from the armory with his gear and reminds him to finish preparing. The demon hunter boasts that he recently mastered weapon mastery with his bladed bow and claims that even 20 skeletons cannot defeat him now. Fang hides the upgrade he chose beneath an innocent expression and replies with a quiet, knowing perhaps. By investing soul power, he raises Bone Javelin to Mastered Proficiency and Bone Shield to Proficient, while his spirit reaches 2.5 and his other attributes improve. Fang also equips us an inferior Gray Apprentice Staff that slightly strengthens spells and a matching robe that marginally reduces incoming damage. In the association's arena, Yi praises his opponent's confidence as the two take their positions beneath the researcher's observation windows, yet his smile suggests that confidence will not be enough because the group's secret training has already pushed him beyond the level shown at school. Green afterimages multiply around Yi as he declares that the association's improvements are greater than anything Fang could imagine. Most researchers predict a demon hunter victory, and one assistant points to Yi's week of training and frightening battle instincts as decisive factors. Lu Hu unexpectedly interrupts their discussion, prompting Professor Chen to ask why the combat instructor has come. Lu explains that 2 exceptional members of his class are about to fight, and confidently predicts that Fang will defeat Ye. Chen acknowledges the quantity of Fang's summons, but argues that he remains a physically vulnerable mage whom numbers cannot protect forever. He adds that Yi mastered a highly effective movement skill the previous day and promises Lu an unpleasant surprise once the duel accelerates. The match begins with Yi bursting forward beside his bladed bow as Fang immediately retreats to maintain a safe casting distance. Aware of the demon hunter's close-range strength, Fang keeps moving backward and refuses to let him reach striking range. Yi warns that distance will not protect him, raises the circular weapon, and channels crackling blue energy toward his evasive opponent. Demon Hunting Arrow divides into numerous blue projectiles and turns the open arena into a lethal tracking barrage. Fang continues retreating beneath the incoming volley while spectral energy accumulates beside him for the summoning response Yi anticipated. 4 huge skeleton warriors rise from radiant circles and place their armored bodies between their master and the approaching arrows. Yi's projectiles cut through the first defenders and fly between the others, exploiting gaps before the formation can stabilize. He deliberately attacks during the summoning rhythm, firing between each appearance to stop Fang from creating another overwhelming force. One blue arrow strikes a newly formed circle and disrupts the spell, earning approval from the researchers watching above. Another nearly hits Fang as he retreats, forcing him into a sharp evasive step and confirming that Yi's ranged pressure is a genuine threat. Fang places one hand into another radiant circle and immediately resumes his spell, refusing to let Yi control the duel by disrupting his timing. The summoning succeeds beneath the barrage, raising a dense line of armed skeletons that absorbs the remaining arrows. From the observation room, Chen praises the younger generation and expresses admiration for how rapidly both fighters powers adapt under pressure, he says that Fang already deserves seed status even if Yi wins. But Lu warns the professor that the result has not been decided. Familiar with Fang's calm and experienced temperament, Lu refuses to believe that the Necromancer entered the arena without another hidden advantage. As the pressure continues, Fang decides that restraint is no longer useful and prepares to expose more of his upgraded summon skeleton skill. Green energy erupts around him when he casts at full power, filling every active summoning circle with undead force. 30 skeletons emerge, astonishing researchers who cannot understand how someone awakened only days ago has improved his core abilities so dramatically. Encircled by the undead army, Yi praises Fang's strength and finally accepts him as a rival worthy of the demon hunter. Fang, however, notices that Yi remains far too composed inside the trap and correctly assumes he has another plan. Yi suddenly activates Fierce Strike and spins through the formation in a broad emerald arc that cuts down several skeletons at once, shattered undead pile across the floor, opening the space the demon hunter needs to make his true approach. Once the distance is sufficient, green light burns in Yi's eyes while the remaining warriors begin to close around him. Blue-green power envelops his body and distorts the air, revealing the movement technique Professor Chen mentioned before the match. Shadow Charge activates, allowing Yi to vanish from the surrounding army and reappear without warning directly behind the cloaked Necromancer. Chen calls the contest over, certain that no vulnerable mage can survive once. Yi converts the fight into close quarters. At point-blank range, Yi swings Vengeance Fierce Strike and channels a surge of green energy through his bladed bow for the finishing blow. Fang calmly reveals that the demon hunter entered a trap because the perfect approach placed him exactly where the counterattack required. An enormous spectral bone shield materializes between them, blocks Vengeance Fierce Strike, and hurls Yi backward with the force of the collision, thrown off balance by the unexpected defense. Yi stares at the skull-shaped barrier and demands to know what stopped him. Professor Chen can hardly believe that the Necromancer possesses another self-created technique. While Lu Hu watches with increasing satisfaction, Fang apologizes for misleading Yi and says that his opponent proved strong enough to deserve tactics rather than a simple contest of power. As the demon hunter steadies himself, loose skulls and cloaked shapes shift across the arena in preparation for Fang's next deception. Professor Chen finally spots something concealed among the skeletal formation, and his startled face shows how thoroughly the strategy fooled every observer. Lu Hu recognizes the scheme and calls Fang's methods genuinely underhanded, though he sounds far more impressed than offended. An optical camouflage cloak allows Fang to hide among his summons, making one disguised figure indistinguishable from the skeleton soldiers around it. Unable to identify the human body, Yi advances through a crowd of identical silhouettes, any one of which could conceal another spell or ambush. The frustrated demon hunter demands that Fang show himself, but the only response is a relentless tightening circle of undead. Realizing that the horde will gradually exhaust him, Yi chooses to use his final major technique despite its long cooldown and serious cost. Blue-green fire consumes his form and forces the nearest skeletons backward as power gathers for the decisive attack. Chen is astonished that Yi has already learned such an advanced ability. Although the cooldown is punishing, its burst damage and escape potential are extraordinary. The researchers recognize the technique and brace themselves, believing the demon hunter has finally located Fang within the army. Yi invokes Skyfall Strike, descending in a roaring pillar of green-blue force while challenging Fang to survive his ultimate move. Bladed energy crashes down and consumes the disguised figure, turning the center of the arena completely white. Inside the explosion, a skull-like shape ignites around a trapped soul flame, hinting that Yi's target is much less human than he assumed. Skyfall Strike tears away the camouflage and exposes a skeleton beneath it, proving that the apparent summoner was another carefully prepared decoy. The technique detonates in an enormous green blast, destroying nearby undead and sending debris across the reinforced floor. When the smoke thins, broken skeletons cover the arena, and the observers cannot tell whether Fang escaped or disappeared in the explosion. Convinced that the blow connected, Yi acknowledges Fang's power but refuses to surrender because his pride as a demon hunter still demands victory. His triumph quickly becomes concern, and he calls urgently for medical assistance rather than allow a research duel to cause a real death. Behind the viewing glass, however, the researchers respond with shock instead of celebration, revealing that Yi has misread the battle. He notices that no one regards him as the winner, and their uneasy expressions weaken his confidence before the truth is spoken. When he looks down, he discovers that the destroyed body is merely an armored skeleton beneath a camouflage cloak. He understands that the fallen figure was never Fangzhou and that Skyfall Strike eliminated another expendable imitation. A reverse disguise layered over a second disguise fooled him completely. One skeleton posed as Fang while the real Necromancer hid among the remaining troops. He turns too late as Fang emerges behind him with the surviving undead and already holds the decisive position. With blue necromantic light still curling around his body, Fang calmly thanks Yi Fan for giving him the victory. The demon hunter's remaining strength vanishes, and his fingers loosen around the bladed bow as the cost of his ultimate technique finally catches up with him. Unable to continue, Yi accepts defeat and the association formally declares Fang Zhou the winner of their intense research match. Skyfall Strike consumed almost all of his energy, leaving the proud fighter conscious but incapable of sustaining another exchange. One of Fang's skeletons catches Yi before he falls, abruptly transforming the undead army from an execution force into an awkward rescue team. Bruised and embarrassed, Yi quietly thanks his opponent while several grim skeletons remain gathered around them. Fang tells him not to worry, flashes a thumbs up, and smugly describes the gesture as simple compassion for the defeated. Yi immediately vows to use this failure to become stronger and promises revenge. Until Fang admits that the remark was only a joke, Professor Chen reluctantly concedes that student Fang's combat abilities surpassed all expectations and begins treating the freshman as a genuinely valuable talent. He predicts that Fang's tactical skill will one day make him a master strategist. Though the Necromancer is unsure whether the title is intended as praise, Lu Hu asks if Bone Shield is another technique Fang created himself, and the student answers yes without hesitation. He claims that practicing Summon Skeleton inspired both Bone Javelin and Bone Shield, conveniently concealing the system's role in deducing them from soul power. Chen falls silent while Lu considers the extraordinary statement, both realizing that their knowledge of necromancers is now seriously outdated. The instructor laughs loudly and praises Fang for constantly surprising him, prompting the nervous student to ask his teacher to be gentle. Lu asks brother King Shan to test the new techniques with the institute's professional equipment, and Chen agrees to arrange the assessment immediately. Fang points out that the duel exhausted all his spirit, but his teacher dismisses the problem with suspicious ease. The solution is an entire case of spirit power recovery potions, and the drained freshman begins drinking directly from one bottle. He empties the potions like water while blue energy replenishes his body, leaving Lu impressed by the refreshing yet shameless sight. Once Fang has recovered, Professor Chen produces a reinforced test golem and prepares the equipment for a formal skill evaluation. Following the same procedure as combat class, he tells Fang to attack the machine directly and allow its sensors to record the result. Bone Flying Spear takes shape from clustered skulls and a long spectral tip, compressing death energy into a brutal armor-piercing projectile. The weapon strikes the golem with explosive force, and its display reports an impressive attack rating of 85. Chen praises the exceptional number for a newly awakened professional and notes that creating the skill himself makes Fang's achievement even more remarkable. With the offensive test complete, the team resets the equipment to measure how much force Bone Shield can endure. The golem raises a heavy mechanical fist and targets Fang, preparing a calibrated punch against the spectral defense. Bone Shield appears at the final moment and stops the metal hand completely. Earning a defensive rating of 80, Lu observes that Fang's offense rivals a Storm Mage while his defense resembles an Earth Knight, effectively giving the Necromancer the specialties of two classes. Delighted, the teacher repeatedly pats his student and declares him born for necromancy. While Fang worries that others will suspect manipulated numbers, Professor Chen suggests registering both self-created techniques in the Federation Skill Repository, presenting Fang with an unexpected way to profit. The repository is a federal exchange where professionals spend contribution points to acquire registered abilities for every recognized class. Since the Institute hosts one of its branches, Chen offers immediate access and Fang gladly accepts the assistance. Registering his creations will allow Fang to turn secret system deductions into legitimate currency and spend the resulting points on abilities he needs. He pushes through the enormous wooden doors beside Lu, expecting countless manuals and enough techniques to transform his build. Instead, total darkness engulfs him inside the supposed library, making him wonder whether anyone remembered to provide lighting. A gentle golden glow finally illuminates the room, uncovering immense shelves and magical terminals concealed by the building's theatrical entrance. The enormous archive spans several floors and contains enough radiant manuals and combat knowledge to justify the Federation's reputation. As Fang surveys the shelves, he finds every familiar ability represented somewhere within them and realizes the repository can supply blueprints for countless future deductions. At a Violet interface terminal, he submits Bone Javelin and Bone Shield while the archive analyzes his allegedly original creations. Both registrations succeed, granting him 200 contribution points along with half of every future exchange fee as continuing income. Because gaining access to such a valuable archive was difficult, Fang refuses to leave after purchasing only a handful of abilities. He selects skeleton attribute training from a shelf, preferring a compatible foundation over unrelated skills with more impressive appearances. The system estimates that deduction will cost 100 soul power, and Fang plans to use repository techniques as models for stronger custom abilities. It also detects that the skeleton meditation method can be upgraded for exactly 100 soul power, presenting the largest investment he has faced. Fang accepts without hesitation and commits the full amount, staking his future progression on a major evolution of his central technique. Violent waves of green death energy burst around him, carrying an aura powerful enough to shake even the normally confident necromancer. Within his consciousness, an enormous skeletal king appears with a golden crown and burning red eyes, resembling an ancient undead ruler. The monarch's presence crushes the surrounding darkness as the system confirms that the skeleton meditation method has evolved successfully. The regal skeleton extends an ornate black and gold book toward its stunned successor and silently passes on knowledge worthy of an undead sovereign. Fang catches the tome and wonders whether the inheritance is truly intended for him, already sensing that the deduction produced something extraordinary. Runes circle his floating body as the book opens beneath him and pours an advanced visualization art into his mind. Fragments of pages orbit the crowned apparition while the technique reveals its new name: Skeleton's Monarch Meditation Method. This evolved version doubles meditation speed and enhances every undead skill, making the 100-point expenditure an exceptional investment. Yet stronger abilities still demand a sufficient spirit reserve, and his previous battle proved how close his current pool can come to complete exhaustion. Since he still holds many contribution points, Fang decides that his next purchase must eliminate that dangerous weakness by improving spirit. He spends 20 points on Presence of Mind, a recovery skill designed to solve his most serious combat limitation. Its passive effect speeds natural spirit restoration, while active use instantly recovers another portion and greatly improves endurance in long battles. Although the technique is notoriously difficult to master, 10 soul power allows the system to bypass training and advance it directly to entry proficiency. Blue runes and flowing energy wrap around Fang as Presence of Mind successfully joins his expanding collection of skills. The passive effect begins immediately, and he smiles with satisfaction when he feels his spirit replenishing more quickly. Fang calculates that a second fight with Yi Fan would now end beneath an ocean of skeletons long before exhaustion became a concern. He spends another 60 points on Vine Entanglement, Swamp, Earthwall, Spiderweb, and Ray of Enfeeblement to serve as future deduction material. Skills alone are not enough without equipment. Though an F-grade lower apprentice can use only gray-white items of a comparable level, Fang spends 40 more contribution points on a complete beginner set intended to support spellcasting rather than withstand direct attacks. The mass-produced inferior gray set contains a spirit-enhancing mage hat, a recovery necklace, and 2 rings that reduce cooldowns. Wearing all 4 items activates an additional effect that permanently increases cultivation and skill proficiency growth by 10%. Fang welcomes the bonus enthusiastically, knowing that every future improvement will now arrive even faster. His panel confirms his lower apprentice rank, unchanged attributes, the complete set and presence of mind alongside the upgraded necromantic abilities. While reviewing his gains, he recalls the armored clone and crowned monarch, and remembers that power must develop on both sides of their connection. He nearly overlooked the fact that the skeleton also needs appropriate techniques, since strengthening only the human body would leave half the system neglected. Fang pays 30 more points for weapon mastery, block and battle cry, 3 essential fundamentals for transforming the clone into a frontline monster. The repository is magnificent but brutally costly, making him hope that another paid sparring opportunity appears before his balance vanishes. When he returns to the association, Fang tells the waiting adults that he gained enormously from the visit. Before they can celebrate, Yi arrives with fierce determination and loudly rejects the humiliating outcome of their previous duel. He demands a rematch and tells Fang to drink another potion, only for his opponent to mention casually that every one of his skills has just improved. Yi insists that he will never accept standing beneath anyone and promises to use everything he possesses against the rival who destroyed his confidence. Fang agrees only after confirming that the second duel qualifies as additional practice and will require more contribution points for Yi to repay later. He returns the recovery potion unopened and suggests that Yi save it for the healing he will need after the match. The insult sends the demon hunter into a rage, and he screams Fang Zhou's name as green power surges around him before the signal. Abandoning any careful setup, Yi opens with Skyfall Strike and gambles the entire rematch on one overwhelming assault. Lu recognizes the desperate but intelligent strategy. Yi must end the fight quickly before Fang's summons and recovery turn it hopeless. As the green ultimate descends, every observer watches for the newly improved Necromancer's response to such immediate lethal pressure. A vast summoning formation opens beneath Fang, burning with runes while undead shapes begin to materialize directly in the path of the attack. One researcher assumes that Fang is relying on the same ordinary summon skeleton, puzzled that his upgraded response appears familiar. Lu rejects the idea immediately because the amount of death energy flooding the room already proves that something fundamental has changed. Fang identifies that difference with a single word: quantity. As innumerable skulls glow behind him and the formation continues expanding, an impossible tower of armored skeletons rises into a moving avalanche, making his earlier group of 30 appear insignificant. Skyfall Strike detonates against the undead mass, but the sheer number of bodies absorbs the improved blast without collapsing. Chen realizes that Yi understood and enhanced his ultimate during their first match, which explains the increased power of this attack. Even Fang acknowledges the substantial improvement while standing unharmed behind his absurdly vast wall of undead. Unfortunately for Yi, the skeleton monarch meditation method strengthened all of Fang's undead techniques as well, and the smiling necromancer Necromancer modestly calls the increase small. The surviving horde closes from every side, and Yi's confidence disappears as luminous skulls consume his entire field of vision. Skeletal fists deliver a ruthless group beating inside a cloud of dust, while the desperate demon hunter begs them to leave his face alone. The rematch ends almost instantly, leaving Yi flattened and probably unable to train for a week as the spectators calmly accept the result. After witnessing the ridiculous display, Professor Chen again proposes a Necromancer research association and receives another immediate refusal. Fang privately rejects the idea because close scientific attention could expose his system and create dangers far greater than any offered benefit. Elsewhere, a red-haired woman enters the skill repository branch and notices the newly registered necromancer techniques shining on its interface. Su Xinyan is astonished that someone has created and submitted original abilities in a profession starved of innovation. Eager to examine the mysterious developer's work, she immediately spends 20 contribution points to obtain both techniques. After studying Bone Javelin and Bone Shield, Su praises their inventive use of skeletal power and declares the unknown creator a genius. Excited by the discovery, she leaves with the two manuals and decides to share the news with her father at once. In Principal Su Tiankuo's office, the exhausted administrator sees Lu Hu return and already anticipates another dispute about Fang. Lu once again formally requests that Fang Zhou join the seed list, this time accompanied by Professor Chen as an expert guarantor. The principal dismisses their effort and argues that necromancers eventually run out of sufficiently powerful skills to support long-term advancement. Chen counters that this particular candidate has already comprehended two original necromantic techniques, an outcome their cautious forecasts never imagined. Su insists that invention means little unless the skills themselves are strong and prepares to reject the argument before unexpected evidence enters the room. Xinyan bursts into her father's office to announce that two new necromancer abilities appeared in the repository, unknowingly providing perfect support for Lu's case. The principal freezes at the words necromancer abilities, while both visiting instructors recognize the extraordinary timing. Although she has not mastered them, his daughter manifests the forms of a spectral javelin and shield and enthusiastically praises their effects. She asks whether her father knows who developed them, while Chen hesitates and Lu silently enjoys the approaching revelation. Before either man answers, Su Xinyan declares that she wants the brilliant inventor to become her master. Her father awkwardly says that such an apprenticeship is probably impossible, leaving the excited necromancer confused and demanding an explanation. The reason is painfully simple. The master she admires is still a student, calmly meditating in class while the adults debate his future. Several days later, Yi storms into the lecture hall once again and orders Fang to come outside for another rematch. Fang asks how many times he has been challenged and wonders whether the obsessed demon hunter ever takes time to cultivate. Yi insists that this challenge will end differently. Carrying the confidence of someone who discovered a new shortcut after his last humiliation, he attributes his rapid growth to Bai Xiaochan, while she angrily explains that he begged her in public and she agreed only to prevent rumors. Fang learns with interest that Bai awakened Lullaby in her sleep, an extremely useful support ability that can accelerate another person's training. Lullaby improves spirit recovery and amplifies the effects of meditation or physical exercise, making each limited use valuable for serious cultivation. Since Bai can activate it only 3 times per day, Yi pays 2 contribution points every week to reserve access. Fang privately wonders whether his debt-addicted rival intends to spend his entire life financing rematches despite his latest confidence. More importantly, the promise of improved meditation suggests an experiment. Perhaps Lullaby can enhance the skeleton clone's remote training as well. He immediately asks Xiaochan to sell him her remaining use for the day and ignores Yi's offended protests when she agrees. With a casual motion, Fang summons several skeletons into the lecture room to serve as temporary opponents for the neglected challenger. He tells Yi to entertain himself with the warriors and send payment afterward, infuriating the rival who has suddenly become background scenery. Fang politely asks Bai to cast Lullaby, and she agrees while their increasingly furious classmate continues to be ignored. Green musical energy gathers around them when the song begins, carrying restorative waves through Fang's mind and along the system's spiritual link. In the undead realm, the armored clone meditates beneath the crimson moon as Lullaby's distant melody crosses between worlds through their bond. The enhancement successfully reaches it, proving that external support can accelerate the clone's automatic cultivation and revealing another valuable system exploit. Its status now shows upper apprentice rank, 18 strength, advanced combat proficiency, a gray bone spear, and 50 accumulated soul power. When Fang notices undead nearby, he chooses them as live targets for testing all of the clone's newly acquired abilities in real combat. The armored warrior charges and drives a spiked bone weapon into the nearest skeleton, instantly displaying its overwhelming upper apprentice power. Another enemy thrusts a spear toward its chest, but blue energy gathers around the clone's hands in preparation for defense. Parry intercepts the blow and reduces its damage, with the chance of success and amount of mitigation scaling from constitution and proficiency. Weapon mastery converts the successful block into a lightning-fast counterattack and uses defensive momentum to kill the startled foe. The same skill lets the clone reshape collected bones during combat, adapting its weapon into a form suited to the next attack. It sweeps the altered weapon past the enemy's guard as blue soul fire streams from the skull ornament and momentum builds. At close range, the warrior releases its grip and allows the spinning weapon to pass just beside its target's head. Reverse thrust suddenly snaps it back from an unexpected direction and smashes through the exposed skeleton before it can react. The victory awards strength and soul power, both increased by Lullaby's 10% bonus, convincing Fang that the support skill is a blessing. More undead emerge from the wasteland, and the armored clone fearlessly charges them to multiply the enhanced rewards. A broad strike crushes another attacker and scatters fragments of bone, demonstrating Weapon Mastery's ability to adjust seamlessly between targets. Every fallen skeleton provides another permanent fraction of strength and soul power, while the Lullaby multiplier remains active. Faced with an entire undead formation, the exhilarated clone raises its weapon and challenges all of the filthy creatures at once. Battlecry erupts in an inspiring roar, temporarily raising strength, constitution, and agility according to the user's strength and skill proficiency. Blue power surges through the warrior as the Legion approaches and sharpens its already monstrous physical abilities, insisting that it can become stronger still. The enhanced clone launches forward and chains one kill into another, repeatedly harvesting attributes and soul power. During the rampage, it senses a vast presence beyond the collapsing horde, and loose bones begin rising through the crimson air. The clone looks up in alarm while a golden halo and enormous skeletal figure assemble overhead from the battlefield's remains. A colossal bone angel completes its formation with a gigantic sword and power far beyond that of the ordinary undead army. Fang feels as though a raid boss has appeared in the beginner area, but his armed clone refuses to retreat from beneath the monster. The bone angel opens its bladed wings, climbs over the wasteland, and prepares a descending blow that dwarfs its small opponent. Its immense sword falls with enough force to split a mountain, destroying the ground as the clone barely escapes the impact. Aware that one direct hit will annihilate him, Fang abandons the idea of conventional defense and searches for a way to dictate the battle's pace. Blocking such strength is pointless, so the clone seizes the initiative and charges before the angel can swing a second time. It activates Battlecry again, surrounding its skull in roaring blue energy and driving every physical attribute toward its limit. The clone shapes a bone spear charged with blue power and leaps at the angel's sword arm joint. A concentrated shield-breaking thrust strikes the joint, drives the towering enemy backward, and creates the first visible crack. Brutal strike follows immediately, filling the clone's reinforced arm with green energy for another devastating blow. The combination pounds the weakened joint until blue explosions tear through the bone and threaten to separate the sword arm from the body. Rather than withdraw, the clone darts around the enormous opponent and keeps the bone angel guessing about its next reckless move. It commits instantly and rushes inside the range of the giant blade, astonishing the boss with such decisive aggression. The angel answers with a furious sweep using the leverage it still possesses, forcing Fang to make an immediate life or death calculation. Parry meets the enormous sword at precisely the correct angle, and blue energy clashes with green as the clone redirects part of the force. Even after the deflection, the impact throws the smaller warrior across the wasteland and cuts a deep trench through the broken earth. Blue energy explodes around the clone when it lands, proving that skill alone cannot fully erase such overwhelming physical power. The armored skeleton rises from the crater, battered but intact, with spectral flames still flickering across its functional frame. Fang realizes that weakening one arm saved the clone, since a blow at full power would have scattered it across the realm. Survival also reveals an opportunity, and its blue gaze remains fixed on the destabilized enemy rather than turning toward escape. The Bone Angel's damaged arm has exposed a vulnerable Soulfire core, finally giving Fang a clear target. Before he can exploit it, the giant changes its stance and grips the sword in one hand, preparing an unfamiliar response to the injury. The angel begins spinning abruptly, sweeping the immense weapon into a luminous circular storm that accelerates with every turn. The clone recognizes the danger too late and braces as the expanding whirlwind seals every route of approach. Green arcs cut through the rock while the one-armed boss spins faster and transforms the battlefield into a circular zone of death. Centrifugal force replaces the strength of its missing arm and shatters the mountain, while the rotation prevents a clean attack on its weakness. The spinning bone angel targets the clone again, and Fang marvels at the astonishing fighting spirit possessed by a mere pile of bones. Driven backward by the approaching vortex, the warrior reaches a vertical cliff and realizes that the battlefield has become a dead end. With no room left to evade, it watches the golden cyclone approach while every rotation carves deeper marks through the stone. The clone grips its spear with both hands and decides to risk everything on a single perfectly timed counter. Even the wind from the blade can tear flesh and scrape bone, so Fang suppresses his fear and studies the rhythm of the rotations. At last, a tiny gap opens between two successive arcs, revealing a suicidal route through the otherwise impassable storm. Charge ignites around the clone and sends it directly through the opening before the next rotation can close it. The warrior bursts into the center of the vortex and drives its weapon into the angel's fractured skull, drawing a furious roar. Fang mocks the giant for suffering from osteoporosis and recommends calcium as cracks spread through its suddenly fragile head. The damage opens the rib cage and exposes the brilliant blue Soulfire core, finally revealing the target Fang needs. Seizing the opportunity, the clone casts Bone Javelin and fires the spectral projectile directly at the unprotected spiritual center. The attack reaches the opening, but the Bone Angel folds one massive wing between the javelin and its soul. The projectile strikes the layered bone feathers and scatters sparks while the protected core slips out of Fang's firing line. Fang suspected that the giant wings served more than a decorative purpose, but confirming their defensive function only worsens his position. Green energy reinforces the wing around the soul flame, giving the airborne boss tremendous defense, mobility, and offense at once. Unfortunately for the angel, Fang's system begins combining web spell with skeletal armament and generates an immediate solution. The deduction produces proficient bone shackles, undead restraints whose strength, duration, reach, and casting distance scale with spirit. Fang celebrates the system's ability to take useful properties from other professions and reconstruct them as superior necromantic techniques. The clone points at the hovering angel and taunts its fondness for flight while blue lightning gathers around its hand. Spectral chains burst from bone shackles and wrap around the angel's body and wings, abruptly taking away its aerial freedom. The chains spread around every limb and constrict the wings, turning the previously untouchable airborne boss into a helpless prisoner. At Fang's command, the clone pulls bone shackles downward and tears the enormous angel from the sky toward the shattered ground. Fang advises the captive not to resist as spectral links pin its arms and make another sword technique impossible. Every desperate movement only tightens the restraints, he explains, while blue current flows along the chains and drains the angel's remaining resistance. The harder the bone angel struggles, the more excited its executioner becomes as the clone raises a spear for the final blow. One decisive thrust pierces the immobilized boss in a red-white explosion and ends the brutal battle before it can escape. Standing over the fallen giant, the victorious clone reaches without hesitation for the Bone Angel's enormous blue soul flame. It eagerly consumes the blazing core, drawing a river of blue energy from the corpse into its armored frame. The feast provides 100 soul power but no physical increase, and the system explains that the clone has reached the limit of its racial attributes. Fang finally understands why recent victories stopped improving its statistics. An apprentice skeleton cannot grow further until it evolves. As white trails drift overhead, the clone looks upward and wonders what power exists beyond its current ceiling. The system offers to evolve the apprentice skeleton into a black iron skeleton warrior for exactly 100 soul power, and Fang immediately accepts. Green system light and black smoke envelop the clone as the stored soul power ignites its first racial transformation. Fang announces that his evolutionary path has officially begun while darkness cracks across the skull and the skeleton warrior transformation proceeds.